Hi, Nate Schulte here with another episode of Discovering Battles with Nate. And for this episode, we're going to be talking about one of the most puzzling battles and the bloodiest ones that ever took place in the American Civil War. The Battle of Sharpsburg, or the Battle of Antietam. Now, Antietam took place in Sharpsburg, Maryland, which was about 50 miles northwest of Washington, D.C. And what was so vital about this state was that there were so many Confederate sympathizers in Maryland. Now, had Robert E. Lee captured Antietam, there's a good chance that the Maryland citizens would be able to side with the Confederacy. With that, there would be more sources and more manpower to do this battle. But the two leaders for this battle were General Robert E. Lee, who was commanding 45,000 men, and George McClellan, who commanded the Union, who was a bit of a passive, cautious general, and he was actually commanding 87,000 men. Now, this battle took place on September 17th, 1862. Now, over in here at Dunkard Church is where most of Stonewall Jackson's men were stationed, and what they were trying to do is they were trying to hold position here. On September 16th at dusk, Hooker's men attacked down Hagerstown Pike near the North Woods. But during September 17th at dawn, McClellan's men opened artillery fire over by where Stonewall Jackson and his men were. And what happened was Jackson at 7 o'clock in the morning counterattacked, and then it was pretty much a stalemate from here because they kept going back and forth. But they were reinforced by Mansfield, and they were fighting for Dunkard Church and the West Woods there. So pretty much this was going back and forth, back and forth. Before we proceed, I'd like to state for the record that the green tanks here are supposedly the Union artillery, while the tan-colored ones here are pretty much the Confederates. Something else to remember is that McClellan did write about the battle in his memoir, and that's where I got my source of this being stalemate, because he was trying to drive Hooker was trying to drive his men to drive the Confederates back, but Jackson, like I said, kept counterattacking. The Confederates had hills, they also had stone walls and rifle beds for cover. But these were pretty much good cover, and the hills also, according to McClellan, were good cover for the Confederates because this hid the amount of men that Lee had under his command. And this gave, McClellan the idea that his men were possibly outnumbered. And he didn't want to take too many chances, because if you lead a short amount of men against an opposing force that has more men than your army, that could lead to massacre. But while 3 of Sumner's divisions tried to help the Union forces, there was a stalemate also going on in this area here, which was to later be called Bloody Lane. Now, it was called Bloody Lane because about 2,500 men, including Sedgwick, were taken down. But this was at Boonesboro and Hagerstown Pike at 9:30. And Sumner's other divisions tried to attack the Confederates brigades, and 2 divisions kept making repeated attacks. So this is how it became Bloody Lane, because so many men got massacred there. There were repeated attacks, and barely any progress was made. Ambrose Burnside sent a brigade across the bridge of Robach Bridge, which was defended by 400 Georgians until 1 p.m. And Burnside's division commander managed to use the ford. See, Antietam Creek here was a river, and this was also good, good cover, because it would be very hard to actually cross a river, because that's going to take time. And if you're trying to get your men across the river, they're vulnerable for musket fire, maybe even artillery units. They're sitting ducks there. Anyways, Lee ordered one division to defend the sunken road here, but it fell to the Confederates, and it failed. So then the Confederates tried to advance towards Sharpsburg, because they wanted to try and capture this town. You capture the town, and then you can fortify your forces there and try to counterattack. But at 3 o'clock, Burnside and his men were ready for a full attack, and they tried, and it wasn't until later they were actually willing to actually do the attack, because he wanted to get his men across the bridge. Bridges were too narrow to get a whole division or a whole battalion across, so they had to wait until everybody was across the bridge. But then with the Confederate forces, fighting them, there was a ford that had to be used, and hopefully that thing was shallow enough. And this line here, this is all reinforcements coming all the way from Harper's Ferry, and they ended up, attacking the Union forces. But they attacked Burnside's left flank before anything could be done. And then that was pretty much, most of the battle. McClellan didn't finish Lee off, because he was afraid that Lee had many more units or forces in reserve. And like I said, he was cautious because he didn't want to lead his men into massacre. And Confederates ended up escaping, but they were pretty much, before they escaped on the 19th, they were saying, come on, General, try and attack them. Let's see if we can finish this. And neither side refused. Now, either because Lee was defeated and he decided he didn't want to lose any more men, and because this whole battle was almost a stalemate, and it was a draw. However, he decided, no, because I don't know how much longer this is going to last. This battle's going to last. And another possibility was General Lee ran out of ideas and fighting power. Lincoln had declared this a victory, a strategic victory for the Union forces, and this victory gave him the reason to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. And some of the reasons why this battle also failed was, not only did McClellan take the opportunity to, try or take the risk to finish off the Confederate forces, which could have led to the end of the Civil War, but he was not very well organized, and because he thought he was outnumbered when he could have tried to send a reconnaissance force to try to actually see if he really was outnumbered. But it was pretty much, it was a tie-in. Like I said, Mr. Lincoln said, no, it was a major strategic victory because they were able to fight off an invasion force. The casualties for this battle were, for the Confederates, 1,512 were killed, 7,816 were wounded, while another 1,844 were either captured or they were missing in action. The Union sustained 2,108 killed, 9,549 wounded, and about 753 were captured or missing in action. One of my sources for this episode was McClellan's own story, which was written by General George B. McClellan himself. Some of the other sources that I have are John MacDonald's Great Battles of the Civil War, with a foreword by John Keegan. Then we have Philip Catcher's Civil War day by day. Also, battles of the Civil War 1861 through 1865. And this is done by many writers like Kevin Daughtry, Martin Daughtry, Parker Hill, and Chris McNabb, Michael Pavkovic. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Battle of Antietam. Since this is Memorial Day weekend, for those of you who are veterans yourselves, thank you for serving, and I hope you all have a safe, healthy weekend. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe. And if you have any questions, I will be opening up the comment section for questions. Thank you for watching. Good day.